headliner. So this week, in a very cool announcement, very like shadow drop again. I feel like a lot of these things could have just been all combined together into a Nintendo Direct. I've forgotten what they're called now because there haven't been many. Nintendo announced a special re-release of the very first Fire Emblem game, and for the West, we missed out on so many releases of Fire Emblem until what was it? Fire Emblem on GBA, I think it was, which was like the 7th Fire Emblem that was
Yeah,
made.
and I think it was just titled Fire Emblem here, but
Yeah.
it was titled,
Obviously
had a
not
full
over
title
there,
in
yeah.
Japan. Yeah.
Yeah, so this was Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light. And the special thing here, so this is going to be released on the eShop in Australia for $9. Again, they're doing this thing that they're going to make it limited until March 31. But I think the real cool news here is the very special limited edition pack that they announced. So it was $90 Australian, like $50 US, and didn't come to the UK region, the European region, but for whatever reason...
Sorry, just a correction, the first one we got was the 6th Fire Emblem game, the Binding Blade. Yes.
In Australia, or...
Yeah, I'm on the list now. I'm just telling you, it's the 6th one called the Binding Blade. That was the one on GPA.
Oh, okay. Might have to double check that later.
God, I'm literally looking at a list of the games.
That's just not how I recall it. I'm not sure if I'm thinking of it in terms of, because there is debate about what constitutes as an actual game in that series. So, even when Sakurai was counting them all, he actually counted the re-releases as originals. So it got up to Fire Emblem 17 or something.
Just telling you now, I'm literally seeing a list of the timeline of the series, and 2002 was the 6th game.
Okay. I'll check that when you're doing your little spiels. And yeah, going back to the collector's edition, so $50 US. I don't, from memory, believe it's been listed yet. I might be wrong on GameSpot, but I do know with Australia EB Games, it was listed and it's already sold out. And what it had in it was a stylized NES box, like the actual, the old school boxes that you could buy, and then the slipcase, and it looks like a little plastic replica of an NES cart, a Nintendo Power, which isn't really applicable here in Australia, but very much in the US, but was still in the Australian version of the release. And then an NES manual. And I should say, all of this, the game was only in Japan. It was only in Japanese. It had remakes and re-releases that obviously been translated, that are released here, including, I think you have one, the DS version from memory.
Yeah, Shadow Dragon. Yeah. And a correction on my correction. So the back-to-back GBA releases in 2002, 2003. So the Binding Blade was on GBA, the first one GBA. The Blazing Blade, which is the 7th, that's the one that was released here as Fire Emblem. So
I was right then.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got this. I've got to put a marker down. This is a monumental time in the history.
I'm happy to admit when I've got something correct, but it's it's because they were back to back at the same time, so that's why it was kind of confusing. They're both GBA games, so
it is actually a really confusing series, because since the first game that I got into was Three Houses, which is obviously the most recent game. And man, I love that game so much. So I started to really get my head around the series, and it is really confusing, the re-releases and, what the titles are, and they're very different in the West compared to Japan. So yeah, this one's big because it's the first time they've ever taken the original game and translated it, and they've added new things into the game as well, which is cool. There's it's integrated chapter spots that you can kind of save it's like a save state essentially. And you can also speed up the game. So you can either speed up the AI or yourself or both. So a lot of quality of life improvements, which is pretty cool.
That's really good, because the rest of the features are kind of a given with anything they release on, your virtual console style things these days, especially with the Nintendo Switch Online and the NES Online stuff. But the fast forwarding, that's something they've obviously built just for this, which is cool.
Yeah.
It's weird. Whenever you're able to do that in a game, though, sometimes I think you don't properly appreciate as much of the flow of the battle if you fast forward the enemy's moves all the time. But I mean, it's still helpful. I'm not going to say it's not helpful. So.
Well, like in Fire Emblem Three Houses, they have they have the same type of system there as well, and I think like it actually, like I started to skip the enemies' animations when it didn't make sense for me to watch them, if that makes sense. So like I didn't need to watch it to understand what they're doing. So I'm really glad that they've got that integrated in as well. So, I guess the question is, this was $90 Australian. Did you buy it from EB Games?
No.
Well, I don't know why that's such a funny question.
Well, I've got Shadow Dragon, so if I want to play through that storyline, I've got it. Obviously, it's a very different game in a lot of ways, but Shadow Dragon, I've played through Path of Radiance, which is amazing. I played through the 2 GBA ones that were released here, and I've played through Shadow Dragon. Of those 4, Shadow Dragon's probably my least favorite, but that's also got to do with the art style. They kind of got this weird pre-rendered art style a lot of people didn't really like, and I'm kind of with them on that. But I honestly have absolutely no interest in purchasing a $90 special edition of a NES game. Really not. It's just not what I'm looking for, but it's huge for fans. I love it for fans, and it's great that they're doing it for the West as well. This easily could have just been a Japan-only special edition, or collector's edition, and no, they actually have done it here, so it's great.
Well, and we're lucky because we are theoretically under the European component of Nintendo, but we do sometimes get US releases when they don't get the release in Europe, which is just so odd the way it all works. Because it's not like as if Fire Emblem for me feels like a massive franchise in Australia. So it was really cool to get it. I was like, and we should say that the trailer that they had for it, like the Shadow Drop trailer,
it was so good.
It was freaking really amazing. Good. Like opens up, and it's really funny because in Australia, definitely in Australia, everyone's introduction to Marth was through Smash Brothers, and like I remember when I saw Marth, I was like, who the hell's Marth? Like I thought I knew a lot about Nintendo, and it played into that. It was really funny. Had like the CRT at the start, like that they're watching, and it's like kids kind of arguing about who the hell's Marth. It's just so well done, like so well done. It's something that Nintendo does so well.
I'd always known about the Fire Emblem series just from. Like I used to get, there's a magazine, I think it's called Superplay in the UK when I was living over there, and that was all about import games and stuff. So you had your Total Magazine, Games Master, and all that over there that were focused on, like just the games that everyone could get access to in Europe. Yeah. Then you had things like EGM, so that was these are all these are all the cool games that that are in the US but we can't get over here. And then you had Superplay, which was really really cool because they showcased all these Japanese games. And so I heard about Fire Emblem through that kind of stuff. But then when emulation became a thing, you're like, oh man, what finally this is what Fire Emblem is, and you play it and you're like, I have no idea what's going on. I can't read any of the the language, of course. Yeah. So it's like it's really those games are very difficult to play via emulation until I imagine people have done English patches and fan patches for some of those.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, for all of them.
Yeah, so it's until that happened, there was no real proper way to play it unless you knew Japanese or just persevered. So it's really really great. It's interesting. I don't know what the general reaction to this announcement was, because I imagine some people would have been like a little underwhelmed of like, oh, they're just re-releasing a NES game, as opposed to thinking something like new and flashy. But that's just. I hope that's not the case. I haven't sat there and looked at what the amount of dislikes were on the trailers and stuff like that. So I hope it's
overall, from what I saw, very positive. Like it wasn't like one of those ones. Like surprisingly, I guess, and I think maybe that's more the fan base. I do find the Smash fan base to be a bit bonkers around stuff.
It does, yeah. It does make me wonder though, like. When are they going to do Mother 3? I mean...
yeah, we've never brought that up on the podcast, have we?
No.
So you want to give the background here for people that are like, what the hell's Mother 3?
Well, a lot of people will know the name Earthbound more so than Mother, but
Yeah.
basically, the third game in the series, Mother 3, because, had Mother, Mother 2, and I can't remember, I think they called it Earthbound. What do they call Mother when they release a Virtual Console
It's
here? It's something
so
like
weird. So over there it was
Earthbound
like Mother
something.
1, sorry, Mother 2, Mother 3. And then here we got Earthbound, which is Mother 2, which is a Super Nintendo game. And then they did finally re-release because they had a translated version of Mother. And I don't recall what they were going to call it. But when they re-released it on like the Wii U eShop or something like that, they called it Earthbound Beginnings.
Beginnings, that's it, yeah. And Mother 3 is, by all accounts, a fantastic game. There's heaps of great fan translations out there ready for to playing it on GBA emulation. But it's
Yeah.
a game out of every, I guess, unreleased Nintendo game in outside Japan. That's the one game that people have been clamoring for, and Nintendo have brought it up before in jokes and self-referential humor about it. Um, I mean, it's an easy rainy day thing for them to be like, oh, here's the Mother 3 re-release, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's something they could pull out of their pocket at any time, really, once they
Yeah.
put a little bit of work into it. And I just wonder if they're waiting if there's some kind of anniversary or something coming up for the series. That'd be
I
the
think there
perfect
is
time to
though. I
do
think
it.
in like next year it's 30 years or something like that, isn't it?
I have no idea, but yeah, that would be the perfect time to do it, just like they did with this. So.
Yeah,
So
look,
look forward to all those unhappy people when it's not announced in every single Nintendo Direct.
but they go to their own they what is it? They walk to the beat of their own drum. That's not right. I can't remember how
March.
that saying goes. Yeah, they march to the
March.
beat of their own drum, right? Nintendo. And for me, it's like they don't really care about what people think about that stuff. It's like, people don't like what we do, whatever. I don't think it really changes their plans. Whether people are like desperately clamoring for something or not. Yeah, like the only challenge that they'll have with Mother 3 is because I don't know if you played it at all. It's like there's so much text, dude. Like, and I know like it sounds like, oh yeah, whatever. It's literally like insane how much text that has. And there is an amazing translation of it. So if you go to starmen.net, it's like the definitive translation of that game. And it's the one that everyone uses for reproduction carts and all that kind of stuff. But just listening to the team, it's like it literally took them like years to get through it. So I kind of wonder if it's a bit like they look at it and just go, geez, there's just like too much work to go into that game to translate it. So
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know.
it's a shame that they're not very open to just essentially giving money to those people for that
Yeah.
work.
Well, you look at Valve. That's what Valve would do. They go, well, hey, there's a
Hmm.
great translation here. I think there's a few things that they would censor that's in the translation. But I think like overall, yeah, that's what Valve would do, wouldn't they? Like that's what they've done with, the updates to Left 4 Dead and Black Mesa and all that kind of stuff. So that would be the most logical thing to do. Go, hey
It,
guys, great job. But they hate that shit, Nintendo,
yeah, I
because
know.
they feel like it
Going
encourages it.
going back to Earthbound for a second, I will admit that that's one of my shameful games that I've never played all the way through. Every time I've tried to play Earthbound, something's just always pushed me away about it, and
Interesting.
I know it's a great game. I It's not that I've disliked when I've played it. I just think that I just never been in a right moment to give it a good shot. So I hope to one day. I don't believe it's a super long game or anything.
No,
So
it's not. Yeah,
yeah.
and for me, the one on that vein is Undertale. It's like I played quite a bit of Undertale, and then I just gave it up. I don't know, it just didn't click with me. Like, I think it had way too high expectations in my mind because everyone's like, "Oh, this game's amazing," and I played. I'm like, "Yeah, it's all right."
Well, I think that game shows its hand. Like, I think maybe the full experience probably is where maybe that hype comes from.
Oh,
But the
okay.
thing is, if you're not enjoying, and the things I say that as someone who's never played it, just from by all accounts, but the thing with that game is, well, any game, like if you play it, you're not enjoying it, you don't have to keep playing it, and that's it.
Well,
It's like, that's it.
That's me with Lord of the Rings, the books. Like I just can't stand those books. Like I've read so many. I would have read it twice if I just kept going by now, because I've read up to halfway through Two Towers or something like that, and then I'd started again years later. I just
Can you believe I've read through Lord of the Rings twice, and I've even listened to the audio book version of it.
Oh god,
which was really interesting. And the audio book, actually, the guy who does the audio book, his voice is actually what inspired the Gollum voice for Andy Serkis. So it's really cool. Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, but just getting back to Fire Emblem. So when I watched this trailer, I was like super into it. I was watching it going, shit, like I'm gonna buy this. And then, like when they were talking about the collector's edition, the thing that they let slip, they go, it's a digital game download. So there's no cart or anything. And I don't know why. And it made me think, like, why is this? But as soon as I said that, I just like totally turned off it. And then I was chatting to my wife about, should I get this? It's like so much money. It's ridiculous for what it is. It's such a cool piece though, And there's like an art book in it. I love going through those art books. Like I really do love going through those art books. But then ultimately, just this digital download, it just pissed me off. And I was like, nah, forget about it. I'm not going to get it. It's just going to annoy me that it's a digital download.
It's interesting to see the reaction across the internet that the entire focus of this is on that limited digital release until the 31st of March.
Yeah.
And you know what? For a game like this, it doesn't bother me at all.
It doesn't bother me at all. We're very contra to what everyone thinks about these limited releases.
I understand why people don't like it. I think getting pissed off about it is unreasonable. But I understand why people don't like the idea, because theoretically there's no real reason, technically, right? But we know it's FOMO. We know the reason why they're doing it. It's marketing. It's basically a way to drum up and get the sales and kind of, create a bit of a buzz about it. Yeah. But to get pissed off about it, I mean, this is a game that you could have played at any point by downloading like an emulator, if you really wanted to.
Well,
and you're still going to be able to do that.
The best version of this game, according to like heaps, like, really deep Fire Emblem fans, is the SNES version. So the SNES, they remade this game, and it's got SNES graphics, and I know there's translations of that game. So if you really want to play it, that's the best way to play it. And, there's obviously the release version, which is what you've got on the Nintendo DS. So there's like plenty of ways to play it. Nintendo DS, by the way, you can play that on the 3DS. The stacks way to play it. What I don't understand about this whole argument is either if you're into the game, you're going to buy it. And I hear that people go, and, I'm very privileged. I got to be clear about that. Like I didn't grow up with a lot of money, but like I'm very privileged now and I'm very lucky. But I still feel like, geez, like it's a $9 Australian digital release. Like if you really want to play this game, you can buy it. You don't have a Switch if you can't afford $9 for a game. And
I think I saw a comment.
The argument that people have around, hey, it's limited. Like, what if they're trying to save up for it? I'm just like, that's just BS. That's BS. And then at that point, it's just marketing. Like, when are people getting angry at Xbox for creating a Xbox Series X fridge that they've started to give away to influencers? That's just marketing. They didn't need to do that. Like, I struggle to get it.
That argument held a lot more weight when you're talking about an $80 game like Mario All Stars. A $10 game is very different ballpark. But also, I've also heard an argument here and there that, maybe what if you want this game, but you don't have a Switch yet, and but you'd like it, and it's like, well, technically, it's not a great way to do it, but technically, you can probably sign up to Nintendo account and purchase it off their website, so you've got that on your account. I
don't think you can. No, you need to Switch to be able to create the account. From my recollection, you can't do that online.
Oh, really? Okay.
But I mean, you could borrow someone's Switch. It's a bit convoluted, But
yeah, at that point, why bother? But yeah.
But again, it's like, I know this. I'm gonna sound like an asshole. This is the whole show of like, am I the asshole? Am I the a-hole? But seriously, it's like, in life, there's plenty of things I've missed out on. Plenty of things. But that's life. You can't experience everything in life. And sometimes things suck, right? And I've had that when I was growing up. But, you know, it steals you.
To me, that's the episode title. Sometimes things suck.
But you know what I'm saying? It's like you can't have everything. I feel like people are so entitled to like, I want everything, It's like, that's part of life. Sometimes you miss out on things. I've missed out on a bunch of Nintendo stuff that I'd love to have,
Yeah. In everyone's defense, I think it just stings a bit more because it's the digital part,
But who cares?
Some people do, clearly.
It doesn't make any sense. Like in the future, everything's going to be digital anyway. You'd presume. Like I'd be pretty surprised if we're still talking about carts in 10 years' time.
Well, I think this whole collector's thing is still something that'll happen. But as you said, it's just going to be digital code in a box anyway. So,
well, and I keep going back to my thing of, I feel like at this point, just don't even have a code. Just release the thing without the code.
But then, I mean, in this is not so much this situation, but there's times when there might just be something else that's like not as expensive, but you actually want to purchase as a present for someone. Then then you don't have to go through the extra step of getting them to purchase it and giving them the money for it. Because I still don't think you can gift stuff on Nintendo either, can you?
No, and that sucks.
So in that situation, you could gift someone the game at the same time, but then that also assumes you have access to a Switch, and not everyone would be in that situation. So I think from a gift and retail standpoint, the code in the box makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you could always have the codes there separate as well, but yeah, I get what you're saying. That gift thing's so annoying. Like my wife's brother, I wanted to get him the Smash DLC, the first Challenger pack for his birthday or Christmas or something like that. And like, I was like, okay, how do I send this to him? Because I've sent him stuff on Steam before, and I'm like, oh, I can't. Like, there's no way to do it. So I had to go, hey, can you bring your Switch over? And then I just like dodgily went, hey, I need to do something with the Switch to connect it to our Wi-Fi. He's like, okay, yeah, cool, whatever. And then I bought it on his thing.
I don't know about PlayStation, but I know Xbox only introduced that this gen or current gen, whereas it wasn't available on 360 and stuff. So
I think they're introducing it on PlayStation, but it's been an issue on PlayStation as well.
Yeah.
And it just seems weird to me because it's such a no-brainer, right? Like people like our crazy friend Mike, who's been on the podcast, he's the kind of guy that if he's been really into a game, he'll buy it for you. He's done that to me before.
He's done it for me as well. He's an awesome guy.
He's like, I love this game. And I'll go, dude, I'm not interested in getting it. And he goes, I'll just buy it for you.
Let me explain. I hope he does hear this as well.
He's not going to hear it. He doesn't listen to anything apart from his own stuff.
That once I was, I think I was off work, as in like, I wasn't working. So I wasn't looking to spend much money at all. And Left 4 Dead just came out. And he was so psyched about this game. He wanted to get everyone to play it. And, and he bought the game for me. But rather than just be, okay, here's the game. And he surprised me with it. He actually went to the effort of getting a box and then buying a Barbie doll. I don't know if it was technically a Barbie or like a cheap knockoff, but it was a Barbie in a sense.
Yeah.
Painted it green, put like red markers over, basically made a zombie Barbie, put it on top of the box and put like all this like paper underneath it. Like it looks awesome. And then underneath the zombie Barbie in the box was the game. And he gave that to me. And he said, and I don't know if this is true or not, he said that he was sitting there at work doing this. And people are like, what are you doing? He's sitting there like cutting up a Barbie and painting a Barbie. Oh, man.
He's like an extremely creative, bizarro guy.
That's amazing. It's amazing.
He's a really funny guy. Very, very funny guy. That's awesome. He's got a lot of crazy ideas that are funny. The amount of competitions he's entered and won, like if it's based on creativity, it's like insane.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. So in terms of this, I ended up not getting it. I really wanted it. I'm like so disappointed that it didn't have a cart. I get that it probably would have added another $10 to it, but honestly, if they said it was like $100 and it had the cart in it, I probably would have bought it. But alas, it's not the case. I'm going to be like bummed out when I see people having it, but I think I made the right choice.
But then you also would have been annoyed because then you have to swap the cart back and forth, and then you would have been like, I'm just going to buy it digitally anyway.
No, I told you my theory about that. That like single player games, I always prefer to buy the cart, but it's the online games that you need to jump in and out
Okay.
of.
Fair call.
And probably Animal Crossing is the one exception there as well. That I feel like you should have that digitally rather than, the cart version. So yeah, alas, but it's such a cool thing that they did. I'm so glad that they did it, and I kind of hope that there's some more announcements along Fire Emblem, but I doubt it. I think this is a pretty big one, and we probably won't hear any more about Fire Emblem until they announce the next game, really. All right, well, let's get into, a very hot platform that everyone's talking about.